So, hello, nice to meet you, Alexei. Could you say hi to the Korean audience first, introduction about BioBiA and yourself?
Of course. Hey, thanks for having me. I'm Alexei. I'm the co-founder of Bob. I've been working on Bitcoin for the last 10 years, always on the mission to unlock new functionality and try to allow people to use Bitcoin in a really trust-minimized manner. I've really always been obsessed with the fact that, if you want to use Bitcoin today for anything else in payments, you have to go to centralized exchanges. And for me, that's just not how Bitcoin should work. So at Bob, what we're trying to do is we're trying to unlock Bitcoin for DeFi and other use cases in a truly trust-minimized manner. So you don't have to worry about the safety of your assets. You don't have to be scared about getting hacked. And you don't have to trust or ask for permission to use your Bitcoin.
So most people store Bitcoins on exchanges or in their personal wallets. So why should Bitcoin be utilized in DeFi?
So Bitcoin started out of the financial crisis, and the mission was to, allow people to use their digital assets, allow for personal finance without asking for permission. And that's ultimately the reason, right? I think it's totally okay if you want to store your assets with an exchange or with the custodial wallet. And, as long as that works for you, that's great. But sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you don't have access to a centralized provider. Sometimes you don't pass KYC. Sometimes they might not be accessible in your region. And sometimes these things lose your money or they kick you out. And Bitcoin stands for financial freedom, and that's essentially the reason why we need DeFi, because DeFi is essentially what Bitcoin set out to achieve, in my opinion, right? We can do payments with Bitcoin. You don't have to ask anyone to send money. But if you want to buy something, another digital asset, if you want to take out a loan, if you want to open a savings account, you have to do that and trust someone. And in my opinion, Bitcoin should not require permission. If you, for example, I love bringing the ETF as an example. I think the ETF is great because it distributes Bitcoin into hands of so many more users. But on the other hand, the people who buy the ETF, they have to ask for permission to use their Bitcoin, right? To access it. And in my opinion, if in 10 years from now, 5 years from now, if I have to ask a bank if I can use my Bitcoin, it's no longer Bitcoin, it's failed. And that's why we need DeFi. We need to have really a way for you to get access to financial products without asking for permission, without being dependent on the bank.
So I think that's a great opinion for why you should store Bitcoin on DeFi. So the next question is, compared to traditional layer 2 solutions, what are the key features and advantage offered by BOB's hybrid layer 2 approach?
So the vision that we have is really to unlock functionality and use cases. And one thing that we've learned is it's not just about the tech. The approach that many other chains have taken is, we're going to build the tech and then users will come. And that's just not how it works. You have to go to where the users are. And the users are today on Ethereum, they're on Solana, they're on all these other ecosystems that have had DeFi for so many years, and they've spent so many resources to build these DeFi primitives, but they never really had access to a lot of Bitcoin. I mean, yes, there's 15 billion wrapped BTC in the market, but that's still only less than 0.1% of what Bitcoin could rate, of the Bitcoin market cap. And so what we aim to achieve with Bob is to not only have Bitcoin security and have the most secure way to bridge Bitcoin into Bob, but to also connect to Ethereum and other networks in the future so that the Bitcoin holders can access DeFi opportunities on ETH, on Solana, and so on. But at the same time, so the Ethereum users, Solana users can deposit their assets into Bob to trade against Bitcoin and do that in a way that is, again, secure by BTC. The vision of the hybrid is actually very simple. It's put Bitcoin at the center of DeFi. So instead of wrapping Bitcoin using centralized providers to different chains, take Bitcoin and say, look, if there's one thing that you, I, Bitcoin maxis, Ethereum maxis, Solana maxis can all agree on is that Bitcoin is secure. So let's use that assumption, because trust is always perceived. Let's use that assumption and build DeFi on top of that. Bitcoin is secure. That means if an ETH user is depositing into Bob that has Bitcoin security, they should be okay with it, right? And arguably many ETH users will be okay with Bitcoin security. Why? Because if Bitcoin breaks tomorrow, we're all going home anyway. And Bitcoin is so easy to verify, so it's very easy actually to build these trust-minimized connections. It's very hard to connect Ethereum to Solana in a trust-minimized way, just because these systems are so complicated, so powerful in functionality, but that also means it's very hard to build trust-minimized bridges where you can use cryptographic primitives to connect these chains. But Bitcoin is super simple. Ethereum can easily verify that's everything that's happening on BTC, which also means that you can verify that Bob has finalized on Bitcoin, right? If you want to check that Bob is secure, The only thing you'll have to do from Ethereum, right, from the bridge contract, is to look at Bitcoin and check, oh yeah, at Bitcoin block 1 million, I can see that Bob block 50,000 has been confirmed, and that's why Bob is secure, and I can now trust to deposit and withdraw in and out of Bob. And that's essentially a very simple primitive that allows us to concentrate liquidity within the Bitcoin ecosystem instead of fragmenting it out onto many different chains.
So you just mentioned about liquidity. Recently, BioBit with various liquid staking services such as Babylon, Sol, Layrock. What potential does liquid staking hold within the Bitcoin ecosystem?
I think staking is a massive opportunity. And the reason for this is actually very simple. Bitcoin staking has product market fits, or specifically staking on Ethereum, on Solana, right? It's the easiest thing you can do, right? You buy Ethereum, what are you gonna do with it? You're gonna stake. It's super easy. You click one button and you bought Ethereum, you like it, you want to get more of it, right? And this was always only available through proof of stake networks. You could never do this with Bitcoin. If you wanted to earn more BTC, you'd have to start mining, and that's not really accessible to everyone. It's, you have to know how to run the hardware, you have to figure out the electricity cost. But with staking Bitcoin, you can actually now earn staking rewards. And you can use Bitcoin, the asset, to secure new applications, new chains, specifically like Bob. And the cool thing here is that from our perspective, it allows us to create something we call the liquid staking flywheel. And the vision is actually quite simple. There is not much yield on Bitcoin right now, right? If you put it on centralized exchanges, on things like Aave, it's 0.1%. It's not a lot. Now, if we can offer staking rewards on BTC, that will attract people to stake, right? Because, it's easy, it's trust minimized, I can actually do more with my Bitcoin. And then with liquid staking tokens like Solve, Lombard, Bedrock, PumpBTC, and so on, you can actually tokenize your position onto Bob. So now you can not only earn staking rewards, but you can use it as collateral to borrow or to do more things. And again, if you want to take more risk to earn more reward, of course, do your own research. And the cool thing is this helps us generate more TVL, more volumes, more transaction fees on Bob. And again, a part of these transaction fees are actually shared back to the stakers. That's the staking rewards, right? So the transaction fees on Bob are the actual staking rewards that you earn when staking. The more transaction fees, the more people will stake, the more people will tokenize as LSTs, put into DeFi, the more volumes, the more retail users can start using this, the more fees. And again, the more Bitcoin will be staked. So you can basically cycle in more and more BTC into DeFi and bootstrap liquidity in a successful and sustainable DeFi ecosystem that could actually outgrow Ethereum.
So you mentioned about the HyperBTC before questions. So could you explain in detail the key features and benefits of these multi-chain BTC or part of HyperBTC? What's one?
So HyperBTC is our first step on this hybrid roadmap on the product side. And the reason we're doing this is actually quite simple. If you look at Ethereum, Solana, Base, Parachain, all these other networks, they all have a Bitcoin strategy, right? They're all looking for Bitcoin. They all build products that offer Bitcoin returns, where you can put your Bitcoin and it does something. And the vision that we have is instead of you as a user having to go to all these different chains and use different wallets and figure out how it works, you can come to Bob, and we have vaults on Bob where you can look at it and it tells you, oh, this vault does this strategy. So one vault, for example, deploys Bitcoin, specifically Bitcoin LSTs, into Pendle on Ethereum, and you actually get rewards on that, right? So you actually have real APY, and then it tokenizes it back to Bob, where you can again use it as collateral to borrow against it, or you can go, if you want to take the risks, you can go leverage, but of course, please be cautious and do your research, or you can trade and you can do things with it. And the cool thing here is people were very obsessed with things like Athena and like these CDFI products where you can tokenize real-world yields from RWAs or like basis trades on centralized exchanges and then use that in DeFi. Well, HyperBTC is the same thing, except that the yield is coming from DeFi itself on other networks. And that allows us to, instead of fragmenting Bitcoin liquidity, we can concentrate it on Bob, and then when you're on Bob, when you have your Bitcoin bridge to Bob, you can deploy into all sorts of different networks, but do it from within one ecosystem, within one interface. It's super easy to access. And then once Bob activates Bitcoin security, these connections will all be secure. It will be the most secure way for you to take your Bitcoin and deploy it into ETH, Solana, and other networks, because you don't have to trust a third-party bridge provider. And last but not least, the underlying Bitcoin right now, today in our current version is like WrapBTC, CBBTC, Lombard, Solve. But once BitVM is ready, the BTC that you're putting into your strategies will be trust minimized. And once that vision is finally achieved, and we're actually making very good progress, you will have Bob with HyperBTC as the most secure and most accessible way to actually put your Bitcoin to work.
So if you just stake your Bitcoin on BOB, you can just deploy any DeFi strategy that you want.
Exactly, yeah. So of course you can build your own, or there's like many different DeFi protocols that come to Bob and like work with us to open DeFi products and offer them to the community. And then we also work with auditors and of course like risk management companies to provide you input on like, hey, where does the yield come from? What are the risks you're taking? So you can actually decide and be very well aware of, where is your Bitcoin going and what is happening and where are you earning the rewards from. And I think that's very important because the Bitcoin community has always been very cautious and very kind of aware of the risks in DeFi. And our goal is really to do two things. Build a very good product that makes it very transparent and easy to access, and at the same time build the necessary technology with Bitcoin staking and BitVM so you really have these products fully secured by Bitcoin and you don't trust third-party bridging or custody providers.
So these days, I think Bitcoin DeFi, everybody's looking into Bitcoin DeFi, especially when I came to Denver, I saw a lot of events going on. But what is needed for the expansion and development of Bitcoin DeFi? Additionally, how is BOB contributing to the diffusion of Bitcoin DeFi?
I mean, it's ETH Denver, but actually I would say it's Bitcoin Denver, right? Last year we had so many side events here. This year there is a Bitcoin track at the main event, right? So you have a Bitcoin whole day track at an ETH conference, which just shows like everybody is bullish on Bitcoin, right? Even if you're an ETH maxi, like everybody has BTC, right? Everybody is a Bitcoiner at heart. And so to really unlock Bitcoin DeFi, I think there's like three things we need to solve. On one hand, it's the bridging and the security, right? I think one of the biggest blockers long-term has been that if you want to put Bitcoin into DeFi, right? Once it's in DeFi, it's transparent, decentralized, but the bridge is usually custodial. So you're actually taking a lot of risk and it's not really quite DeFi yet. So that's one part, and that's where BitVM comes into play, and we've been contributing to BitVM for actually quite some time. We helped co-author the BitVM 2 design, which is what is currently being built by all those teams. And we also just released our public testnet where we can actually start testing BitVM and users can go and experiment with it. So that's one component. And we're also working with many institutions, staking providers, custodians, market makers, wallets, that will be operating these bridges to make sure that they're on board from day one. Because again, just building the technology is not enough. We have to make sure that we have all the institutional and DeFi and ecosystem partners on board. So when BitVM is ready to go to mainnet, it can be really safe, secure, and easy to use for users. So that's the security part. But then again, I already kind of started talking about the user experience. Even today, right, even if you're okay with using WBTC or CBBTC, the UX is not great. Like many DeFi users have Bitcoin, but they struggle of actually getting their BTC that is in the ledgers or in some Bitcoin cold storage into DeFi because, well, you have to pick from one of these 5 different bridges. You have to go to their website. More often than not, you have to do KYC. There's a minimum amount, there's high fees, and it's just such a painful process. And then you have to find a DeFi protocol. You have to educate yourself. And they all look different. DeFi UX is very crazy sometimes, right? And that's a problem. And what we're solving here on the Bob side is we're making sure that you can take your Bitcoin and deploy it into DeFi with one transaction. So that's where we launched a Bob Stake product that really hides the complexity. You can go from Bitcoin into any wrapped BTC asset and into any staking position. And when I say staking, you can stake it into Babylon, but you can also put it into a lending protocol then and borrow something against it. You can supply it into a Uniswap pool. You can now also put it into Euler on Bob. And there's so many more strategies. You can also put it into HyperBTC vaults that then deploy to Ethereum and other networks. But instead of clicking many times and dealing with different wallets and interfaces, with Bob Stake, we've built something that is just one transaction. And I think that's very important because you need both the tech, but you also need to fix the usability. And what we really care about is usable decentralization, and that's kind of the keyword here.
So could you share any plans for additional features, services, or upgrades that BOB intends to offer users in the future? So I'm asking about what's BOB's goal in 2025.
So for 2025, our goal is, BitVM is on testnet, let's get it to mainnet. So there's a lot of resources and effort, both on engineering and on the product and business development side with partners to get this to production. So we can say, look, you can actually now use it, and we can start building trust in the system, because the tech is new. It will take some time for people to gain confidence. So that's number one, get BitVM to mainnet. Number two is build out more opportunities for people to deploy Bitcoin into DeFi. So we started with HyperBTC on Ethereum. We're going to be adding more and more networks. And the way to do this in a secure manner is, that's goal number three, Bitcoin security. Integrate Bitcoin staking security on top of Bob, so that you finally have your assets secure by BTC. Anything you do on Bob is secure by Bitcoin stakers, and that unlocks these HyperBTC products to be truly secure. This is already in progress, in prototype stage, and we're only just a few months of actually a full rollout. And then the fourth point is really making Bitcoin DeFi more accessible. So instead of you always having to go to Bob and you have to learn about Bob and have to figure out how to use these things, what we want to do is for you to be able to access DeFi without even having to write down your seed phrase or worrying about a wallet. Abstract the complexity, sign in with your Twitter, sign in with Telegram, start using these applications, and work with partners that already have many, many users that want access to Bitcoin DeFi. So our focus has been a lot also on distribution channels, wallets, custodians, staking providers, other exchanges, right, that are looking to allow their users to do DeFi, work with them to make sure that it's super easy to go from CeFi to DeFi, from wallet to DeFi, and make that work with Bitcoin. It works on Ethereum, but it was never done on Bitcoin before. And what we're enabling is that you really can use Bitcoin for payments, for DeFi as collateral, to then borrow stable coins and then put it on your credit card. Do that without having to think about, oh, is it EVM? Is it a wallet? Do I need MetaMask? What is my seed phrase? Just log in with your social, but make sure that it's actually still secure. Your keys are backed up in your Google Drive, and you basically, it's kind of it's like in between. It's like Web 2.5. But in my opinion, that's what we need to onboard the 300 plus million users that have Bitcoin into DeFi. Like, there has to be this stepping stone. I think many, like also in Bitcoin, like Lightning and many DeFi projects, expect users to go from like 0 to 1, like become DeFi experts right away. And I don't think that's the way to go. We need to not, tell people, oh, you're so bad for not using DeFi. We need to just give a very good user experience and say, hey, you're on Binance, you're on KuCoin, you're on Gate, MXC, whatever. You can do the same thing here, but it's secure and it's actually very easy to use. And I think we're actually looking at, what we've been working with teams from like the OP Superchain. And there's so many teams working on improving the user experience. We're very, very close to making this possible. And we actually already have a few prototypes. So we launched something called Bob Pay, where we can send Bitcoin to someone's Telegram or email address, and they don't need a wallet. And that's just a starting point. So that's like, for me, the 4 biggest things that we want to achieve this year.
Got it. So this will be the last question. So what are your thoughts on the Korean market? Could you share a message with Korean investors, maybe on Bitcoin, builders?
I mean, I've been to Seoul last year to the Korean Blockchain Week, and I think, it's one of the most vibrant communities and one of the communities that has embraced crypto the most. I feel like, Korea is so far ahead of the curve in so many things in terms of adoption and people being aware and knowing what's going on in the crypto space. So naturally, we'll be very, very excited to build a stronger presence in the Korean community and make sure that, you can use your Bitcoin and do stuff with it. And yeah, hopefully we can unlock Bitcoin DeFi specifically also in Korea.
That was great.
Cool. Thanks so much.